There's something curious about bonsai, a type of tree that's been purposely stunted so it will never grow beyond a few feet. It is literally kept in a pot. Its roots are wrapped around rocks. It's wired and bound with twine. And at first glance, we might think that what's happened to this tree is just sad. But there's something poetic about a tree being held hostage by its container, kept from realizing its potential because of the limits placed upon it. I've even heard some bonsai artists call it a tragedy. Now, this idea of a plant being trapped inside a pot has been used as a metaphor for a long time. As children, we remember Jack and the Beanstalk having to escape his father's bean-based prison, and how many of us have felt like our lives were being held hostage by debt or an addiction. We see the world outside the window and we dream of exploring it, but feel unable to leave. If we look carefully at the bonsai, though, we realize that it isn't the pot that is holding it back. In fact, the bonsai is only able to thrive because of its container. It needs the boundaries so it doesn't grow too big or become top-heavy. The bonsai is free to grow outwards or upwards until it hits the walls of its container, at which point it is forced to go inwards instead, creating more compact, tighter grain, which makes the wood harder and more dense. So what's happened to the bonsai is not a tragedy, nor is it sad. It's actually pretty cool if you ask me. I love bonsai because they remind me that although we may live in a world where everyone is striving to become bigger and better, we don't need to expand outwards in order to add value or make an impact. A lot of the times when we're feeling the most stuck, it's because we're looking in the wrong direction. Like the bonsai, we may be facing the walls of our pot and thinking we need to break free in order to achieve anything. But our container could also be our most valuable asset. All we need to do is change our perspective. The other day, I was talking to a designer who told me that he struggled with procrastination. He said, "I want to be productive, but I just can't seem to stop getting distracted." Then he paused and looked down at his phone. He laughed and said, "For example." In that moment, I realized that his phone wasn't the problem. His phone was simply a manifestation of a deeper issue. It was the thing that he was subconsciously using to procrastinate. And I had no way of knowing that at the time, but after years of trial and error, I did learn how to fix it. And now I run a channel that helps people get stuff done and teaches them how to use their phones less. Now my channel wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the fact that I picked up a new habit when I was 21 years old. That habit was writing every morning. I started writing in a journal, and it became my daily ritual. I knew that I wanted to write a book one day, but I thought that in order to make that happen, I needed to practice. What I didn't know was that I would end up working for Penguin Random House 5 years later and release my first book in 2020. It just didn't click for me right away. In both cases, I was able to turn my biggest weakness into my greatest strength because I decided to flip the switch on my mindset. I started viewing my phone not as an enemy, but as a tool that I could harness. And I started viewing my journaling habit not as a chore, but as a pathway to a larger goal. The same is true for all of us. Although we tend to talk about overcoming our weaknesses and conquering our fears, sometimes the best way forward is through them. We don't need to fight our weaknesses. We can choose to fight alongside them. We can become what we fear. When I was younger, I was really shy. I hated public speaking, and I always dreamed of becoming an extrovert. But then I read a book called The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Sophia Dembling, and everything changed. It's a wonderful book that celebrates introversion and shows why it's a superpower, not a flaw. After reading it, I stopped trying to beat my introversion and started leaning into it. I became a writer, started a blog, and soon after began making videos. I was finally able to thrive. Over the past 8 years, I've talked to hundreds of people who I admire, and I've learned that they all have weaknesses and fears that they've turned into strengths. For example, Tim Harford is someone who struggles with social anxiety, but he became one of the world's most popular science communicators. Darren Brown is terrified of flying, but he uses that fear as fuel for one of the most successful mentalism acts in the world. Elizabeth Gilbert was crippled by self-doubt, but she went on to write the best-selling book, Eat, Pray, Love. Susan Cain was painfully shy, but she wrote the best-selling book, Quiet. Why Introverts Are Often Better at Everything Than Extroverts. And Stephen Hawking was told by doctors that he wouldn't live past 21, but he went on to become one of the most brilliant minds of our generation. These are just a few examples of people who overcame extraordinary obstacles, but there are countless others. You see, we often think of success as belonging to people without flaws, those who are naturally gifted or who got lucky. But that's just not the case. Most people who achieve great things didn't get there because of who they are. They got there despite it. And while we can take steps to improve ourselves, there's no need to wait until we're perfect before pursuing our dreams. So the next time you feel like you're stuck, try changing your perspective. Ask yourself, how could my biggest weakness become my greatest strength? How could I lean into this and use it to propel me forward? It might be hard at first, but as with any muscle, it will get easier over time. You will start to notice that the things that were holding you back no longer have a hold on you. You'll find freedom in the very things that you once feared. We live in a world where we're always encouraged to expand our horizons, to explore new opportunities, and to pursue our wildest dreams. But sometimes growth doesn't have to come in the form of expansion. Sometimes it comes in the form of contraction, of zooming in, of focusing on the details. There's a Chinese proverb that goes, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." But maybe that journey doesn't have to begin with the step out the door. Maybe it can begin with a shift in perspective, a change in the way we see things. Maybe growth can begin with a single thought, the realization that our weaknesses are not our enemies, but our allies, that our fears are not our limitations, but our launch pads. Most of us spend our entire lives waiting to start living. We tell ourselves that we will be happy once we finish school, or once we find a partner, or once we have kids, or once we retire. But life isn't really a place we arrive at. It's a journey we embark on. It's not a destination, it's the road. And the truth is, wherever we are right now is exactly where we need to be if we want to get where we're going. Because when it comes to life, the only thing that's holding us back is the way we see things. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.